I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, we'll start with our council reports, and my apologies because it's been a busy 3 weeks here, so bear with me. On May 24th, we had our Police and Fire Advisory Board meeting. We met with Randy Schaefer from the Community Foundation to discuss ways of creating agency fund programs that might help long-term fund the DARE program and other things like Shop with the Cop and the Night to Unite. No decisions were made, but we just heard from Randy on what's out there. The board also discussed various types of public engagement before we adjourned early, and we will follow up on that later in our agenda. On May 25th, we had police officer interviews for a candidate who applied. We did recommend that we hire him, and that's coming before us later in our agenda. On May 30th, Jean and I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, discussed to the Chamber how if they have businesses in town who feel strongly about nature energy, if the Chamber wants to come to us with a unified voice or present different options or different opinions, how they can do that. There was a presentation from Lisa Stang, who is now a former preschool education teacher, and I'm just going to gripe because my daughter was supposed to have her next year. Talk about the fundraising drive for a new playground at the elementary school, which is it's a playground that would work for kids 0 to 5 years old. It would be wheelchair and handicap accessible and offer a number of things that we don't have currently in town. So I think that's a really good program. We also heard from the Chamber about their upcoming events, including Town and Country Days and the new ticket protocol. Everything, if you haven't heard, all carnival tickets are going to be electronic this year. That's not the Chamber's decision, that's the Carnival's decision. So if anybody's throwing the Chamber under the bus, it's not the Chamber's thing, that was the Carnival. There was also a discussion of the company that does the polling event behind the Carnival grounds. They might want to do a second event at a different point in the year, maybe as early as May, I think they were talking.
Yep, early May.
So they might come looking to us for support to do that. Also on the 30th, Paul Thielen and I attended a meeting with some citizens who were concerned about nature energy. We heard and listened to them and had a discussion about how they should be contacting us, and we can talk and address any of their concerns or put them in touch with more knowledgeable people than the two of us. On May 31st, Tarek and I were invited to come here to City Hall. We met with Kevin Cook from the, who owns the Painesville McDonald's. They are closing on June 24th. And what Kevin met with us to discuss was the fact that that was a corporate decision. It was not something that he made locally. Tarek and I were both very express about our support for trying to keep them open, to see if we could call corporate or do anything like that. And he made it abundantly clear that the decision was done. He was going to try and reopen some doors, but he thought they were pretty locked and shut. So we offered, but unfortunately there's not much we can do. After that, I did reach out to somebody by phone to see if they would have an interest, a local or sort of regional local restaurateur, to see if they'd have an interest in moving into that spot. I haven't heard back yet, so I'm going to take that silence as a likely no, but there are some people out there who might want it. Tarek has also been in contact with some people, and I'll let him discuss that further. Also on the 31st, I attended a meeting for the Painesville Area Community Foundation. We talked about the new library board and moving from something that's sort of been informally led by the foundation to more of a city-led project and how we want to build on the momentum that they've already done. I thought that was helpful. On June 2nd, Tarek and Neil and I met with the township supervisors to discuss the annexation of properties within town. They were going to talk to the property owners, and then I will go back up there in 2 weeks, or I will go up to the township hall, in 2 weeks to follow up with them. We also chatted a little bit about renegotiating our annexation agreement. They promised that they would at least look at it and think about talking about it. And we'll revisit that in a couple weeks' time. On June 2nd, I met with a local business owner. We chatted about some of the challenges that businesses face as they move into Painesville. A lot of it was relating to buildings that are full and aren't available, but also aren't necessarily being used, something that we've discussed ad nauseum as a council, and how we've enacted a no storage ordinance to try and address future buildings from falling into the same predicament. June 3rd, Rod and I attended the Trail Guards ribbon cutting for their new scenic pathway. The city helped fund part of that. I think we were about 50% of the total cost is what was shared ultimately. But it was there. The path allows people who might use a wheelchair or other forms of mobility to get around the nature park and go down the trails and view the river and things like that. I also had a conversation that we should sit down as a city and talk about long-term sort of support for that program. I know Tom's not interested in running it forever, and even if he wanted to, there are only two certainties in life, and one of them's going to catch up to him, I guess, here at some point. So we talked about how we can really support a helpful program like that long-term. Going forward then, and I'm sure there's something between June 2nd and June 8th that I'm missing, but I just can't think of it. So Tarek and I met on June 8th with a resident of the township, discussed her concerns with the Nature Energy project. We're going to respond to her. We've got some questions out to Nature Energy. We've done some additional things. We're going to get her some information as well. Also advised her to reach out to her supervisors if she has any additional questions, since they're the ones who represent her. Tarek and I also met on the 8th with Janelle Bullard, talked about the tax implications that Nature Energy might have. We're looking to schedule a meeting with the Stearns County Auditor to get some better information on what a development like this would do to our local tax base and the school. So hopefully that will come together in the next few weeks. And we also chatted about the schools, also disappointment in the closing of the McDonald's, as of course a number of high schoolers get their first job over there, and it feeds a lot of people for PAC events. June 8th again, I met with Ben, Paul, and Peter Bugby, came into City Hall while I was here, and we chatted for about a half hour about an interest in developing the land behind John Deere and how they might partner with some developers who have already expressed interest in doing that. We talked about TIF, tax abatement, and other things that are available. Also shared that if they wanted to get into some downtown redevelopment, that we'd probably be willing to work with them there as well. And they're just gonna they were sort of in the stage of just feeling everything out right now, so they'll get back to us. June 9th, Friday, Tarek and I were interviewed by Mike Jacobson regarding Nature Energy and the kayak program. And then this morning, Tarek and I had a brief meeting with Jesper and Hannah from Nature Energy to discuss their plans for doing an open house. And right now they're thinking about doing one tentatively on July 27th. They're going to confirm that with the Legion, probably hosting it out there where there's enough room to facilitate anybody who might want to come through. Jesper was talking about doing it in a very similar way to the Benson open house, where they have 6 or 8 different stations and representatives from Nature Energy, and it's just sort of a come and go as you want. You can talk to whomever. There's not going to be a set presentation, but they will have people there to answer questions and discuss various things as it goes. So the thought right now is that July 27th was the date that worked for them, and Tarek had reached out to the Legion along with the Green Roof Area Center, because we said those are the 2 spaces that could probably fit everyone who might have an interest, and the Legion was available on the date that worked for them. Otherwise, I don't think I have any other meetings that I attended. Pardon me?
Quite busy.
It's been a very busy couple of weeks for me.
Kids don't know what you look like?
No,
Ooh.
no, the kids have gotten quite upset when I tell them that I have to leave. No, but one thing I did want to add is just a reminder. I don't know that any of us need reminding, but I'm going to say it anyway. As we're talking to people about Nature Energy, you know, the issues that people are concerned with are very dear to all of us. It's water quality, things like that. And whether or not we agree with the ultimate concern, I think it's valid to listen to people's concerns and hear them out without prejudging. I mean, we've all had issues where we might jump to a conclusion, but we need to hear those concerns and listen. People are valid, their emotions and everything are valid. So we have to have these conversations. It's what we're elected to do. The other thing is, in some emails that were exchanged last week, somebody referred to Tarek and I and told us that they were not our enemy, but then proceeded to say that they had heard from allies around town. And I had to think, well, if you're not the enemy, but you have allies, that sort of creates a false dichotomy where we might be at war and maybe you are the enemy. But I don't like to think of anybody in this town, whether we agree on an issue or not, and I think our council is very good about recognizing that we all have different viewpoints on things and being able to have a discussion based on those issues and go home without thinking of each other as enemies at the end of the day. Because we're not. We're all here to represent the city, and we're all here to do what's best for the city. So just as things get, if they may get contested, and keep things off Facebook, because that's just the devil's playground, I think. But, you know, keep in mind, we are here as elected officials to serve all the residents of our committee or of our community, regardless of where we stand on any given issue. So it was nobody on this council that said that they were or that they were not our enemy, while simultaneously implying that maybe they were. But just something to keep in mind. You know, I think we're all partners in trying to reach a better outcome in this, in whatever that outcome is. That's where we are.
I think it goes back to when we said you would be our spokesperson. And I think you've made the responses on Facebook very good, and I don't think we need to add to it, add fuel to the fire, so one person doing it is enough.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Thank you. I've been on my soapbox for about 11 minutes now, so I'll shut my mouth and I'll turn it over to you, Neil.
I only need a little soapbox. I was at the policy and procedure to go over the police applicant, and we'll be approving that tonight, hopefully, so that was a good interview. And then there's only one other thing. I didn't write it down.
Was it tonight?
Was it our meeting?
Well, we had policy, or public works tonight. A lot of discussion on irrigators and spending money, but hopefully all our funds are able to cover it, so we're looking good there.
Thank you. Megan.
I had the park and tree on the 8th. We talked about the dog park. We're going to try to gauge kind of how many people are using it. And then there was some discussion about the tennis courts at the school as well again. And that's another thing that we're going to kind of try to look and see what the use is there before we decide on anything. We also looked at fire pit locations in Gazebo Park. I had the environmental meeting that was also on the 8th. There was a representative from US Solar here speaking with us about that program. Let's see, we had a few resignation from the board. We discussed the issue with there not being a paper shredder at the last town cleanup. And I think that is about it. I have had a couple questions or phone calls from people who want to know, because they know that I went and saw the plants, kind of want to know what I saw firsthand, so I've explained that to them. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it.
On the paper shredder, has anybody reached out and expressed concern after the event, wishing that it was there? I know there were people who said that they wanted it there before the event, but...
I have had several, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Maybe every other year would be a good idea for the shredder.
I think we're just
Something
gonna
to that
see
effect,
if
or a $5 charge or something, so.
we can find it cheaper, and kind of, we're looking at options right now, because, you know, it won't be till April, so we've got some time.
Sean, I did remember my other meeting. I was at the township meeting to talk annexation, and there could be some future annexations in order that we were discussing.
Yeah. I don't want to put words into the township supervisor's mouth, but I was optimistic about part of the conversation and pessimistic about another part, so take that as you may. Megan, did you have anything else?
I think that's it for
All
now.
right, thanks. Jean?
Mine wasn't near as busy as anybody else's. I was at the chamber meeting with Sean, and he went over all that. And then I was at the planning commission meeting where we set the hearing for the rezone of industrial park for height for the 29th, so.
Anything else? Then?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Paul?
Nothing for official business, however, I did attend the meeting over at the game store for the Nature Energy stuff. And then tried to straighten out some things, and then that's about it.
Right. Moving on into our department head reports. Ron, first on the
Okay.
list here.
All right, thank you. First of all, in the parks, the swim raft, which we had approved at the last meeting, will be picked up and installed tomorrow, so had quite a number of people asking for it already. Reservations at Gazebo and at Veterans Park, residents can pick them up here at City Hall. So far, I think we have like 25, 26 of them, so it's off to a very good start. At the park board meeting, yes, we also did, adding on to what Megan had said, a survey of what we want to do in the future, some kind of a web-based. I've had a number of people ask, when are we going to be expanding the splash pad? And I said, well, we can put a survey out there, and I think Sean had also mentioned that we do something along that line. Also discussed possibly a native plots. I know we just had the pollinator issue, and that was on the agenda, but we do have a request coming forward, so the ordinance would have to be changed to allow that. And I think that is the way that the entire pollinators are going to be seen, as more of a flower garden or native plantings. So that will be added onto the agenda or to the ordinance. Training, Lee and Brad, they were at a Minnesota Rural Water Wastewater one-day conference. Due to all the warm weather, irrigation has started up a little bit early this year, but last month we did get rid of almost 11 million gallons. On the soybean end of things and the chloride issue there, our chlorides are actually down from where they were 2 years ago. I think we ran about 350 milligrams per liter. Sampling this year, we're at about a 240, so it's a fairly significant drop. And I think we will be seeing that grant coming down the line here shortly, that we will get to upgrade our softeners in town. That'll be a huge support for that. On the water usage end of things, currently we're up about 200,000 gallons a day right now due to everybody running their sprinklers, which is good. Environmental meeting, it was at that. Also discussed there was the moving of the spring cleanup day to either summer or fall. That members all felt we should leave the date alone right where it is. So, and as noted, we will be working on the shredding cost. And the school project that has begun, I think it was like 80 feet of sewer line that we replaced out there, and the lining of it will be, I believe it's next week. Correct me if I'm wrong, but check, yes. So that's all I have.
We'll say on the splash pad, we had family up from California on Saturday, and we brought them over, and they were just totally amazed that we have that amenity in our town, and thought that it was fantastic. And so I agree, we should look at expanding it. I think it is a very valuable asset to our community. I think when people who have far more money than I do visiting from San Francisco compliment something that Painesville has that San Francisco doesn't, we should really continue to do that better. Anything else for Ron? All right, thank you, sir. Tarek?
All right, I don't want to repeat any of the meetings that were already said here, but on the parking tree, we also talked about the cameras that were installed at Gazebo Park because of
Oh,
some of
yeah,
the issues.
Ron, can you talk to us about the vandalism a little bit that happened out there?
Well, we had a few items that were torn off the wall there. Toilet paper that for about a week straight, it seemed like we couldn't keep a roll there. They were always taken off and strewn across the entire rooms there. So there was one day where we just locked them, and cameras have now been installed. So not obviously inside, but outside, so we can see who's coming and going.
All right, thank you. Sorry to cut you off,
Okay,
Tarek.
no, so that was something I think we need to point out as well. I attended the Ricori Trail meeting in Rockville again because we had the approval of the resolution that we're going to send out to all the entities along the trail from Wilmer to Cold Spring in order to get support for DNR to complete paving the trail that goes along by Painesville here. So that's complete now, so we'll be sending it out to some of these entities. I attended a call with U.S. Representative Michelle Fischbach. It was a short call, but it was primarily talking about, or the concerns were from the small cities on, they were hearing some rumblings on clawbacks of any unused ARPA money, and they are going to send out some clarification on that, so don't have a clear answer to that one yet. And then also talking about funding for different water and wastewater projects, that's going to be coming down the road as well. When we met with the owner of McDonald's on closing it down, I also reached out to the current owner of that building, who was also surprised by it, and he was willing to work with them and renegotiate a more favorable lease terms, but of course McDonald's has already made up their mind. So I talked to the owner about us working with them to try to attract another fast food restaurant here, and he was very pleased to hear that we will work with them to try to find another replacement for McDonald's here. We met with the school superintendent, that was already mentioned, had the meeting on the town annexation, or annexation with the township, and yeah, everything else was already said.
Okay, any questions for Tarek? Okay, going on then to our open forum. I only see one person here. DJ, did you want to talk to us about anything, or are you just hanging out?
I'm just learning right now.
All right. Moving on then, we have our consent agenda, and a note before we get to new business. Ron has asked that we pull items C and F. There are some updates to do to that irrigation agreement before it comes back. And then he and I are going to talk a little bit about the pollinator promotion program, like he talked about in his report, and hopefully come back with a more global, sort of comprehensive solution. But with that, moving on to, I'd call for a motion on the adoption of our consent agenda, unless anybody wants anything pulled, noting that the library board has been moved to old business. We have the minutes of the meetings listed on page 1, along with the approval of the vouchers totaling $421,105.19.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Hertzberg, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Oh, Gene, I found your gavel. It was in my car.
Oh, of course.
Oh yeah, there's another thing. I went and I talked to the high schoolers about the joys of being mayor, along with some of the struggles of that. And as part of it, I brought my gavel as a prop and then didn't bring it back right away. So when Jean had her planning meeting, she couldn't find it.
Can't even leave me a gavel.
New business, looking at setting a joint city council and planning board meeting. As Jean indicated, the planning board recommended a June 29th special meeting for discussion of the ordinance. In talking to Tarek and Jen and Jean as well, we all sort of thought that it might be best to just do a joint meeting with the city council and the planning board, rather than potentially having to do 2 public meetings. That way everybody can hear the information, more voices to hear the questions and things like that. So our recommendation, at least from myself and Jean and Tarek, would be that we hold a special joint city council and planning board meeting for Thursday, June 29th at 6 p.m. And that would be to discuss the amendment to the zoning ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Otherwise, the motion would be in order. Neil?
Can we limit discussion to just that topic?
Yes, discussion would be just that topic.
Thank you.
That's what's on the agenda.
So, and I also asked Jen if we're going to do that to prepare a sign-in sheet, kind of like we had the meeting regarding the police coverage, where everyone signs in and thered be a question about whether or not you support or disapprove of the ordinance. So that way, if we have public speakers, I can alternate on who speaks between pro and con, if people elect to choose. We can't force them to, but if they want to, that's something that might help facilitate some conversation. And we do still have our time limits left from that meeting as well. Those are part of our rules of order. So. With that, I'd ask for a motion on whether or not we should set a special meeting.
I'll move to set a special joint city council and planning board meeting for Thursday, June 29th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
All right, there's a motion by Brick. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg to set a special joint city council and planning board meeting for Thursday, June 29th at 6. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Right, page 5, department head spending limits. Tarek.
This came about out of a request from a department head to increase spending limits. And after we did some research on it, there really is no policy on spending limit other than for myself. And it was more of a, I guess, implied or, kind of verbal rule or verbal limit, not really a strict limit there. So we're not recommending that we make any change.
Yeah, so that was something that came to policies and procedures, and my understanding in chatting with Jen is that they did a little bit more research after policies made their recommendations to figure out what exactly might have happened with past city administrators and where this issue came about, but that it's resolved now, so no action needs to be taken unless the council wants to. So, unless I hear a motion on that, I'm just going to move on to item D, which is the snow emergency day. So we're skipping over the pollinator ordinance. So Tarek, on the snow emergency day.
Yeah, we had initially recommended through policies and procedures that we give Public Works employees half day. However, city employees had the full day, so we're recommending that Public Works have the same as a free day they could use.
Do you want to give the history of how this came about?
It came about during a snow emergency where we had closed down City Hall, and we recommended that we give everybody, or not take it out of their PTO. And as a result of that, Public Works would, because they had to work that day, they wanted to have an option to have a personal day or an extra day in lieu of that. So that's how that recommendation came about.
Just to add, in the future, we're gonna go by the policy.
Yeah, in the future, if we do have a snow emergency, it will be taken out of PTO.
So the recommendation is a one-time exception, is set on the motion sheet to be used by the end of the year.
I'll make the motion to grant a personal day to the full-time public works employees for the city snow emergency closure to be used by December 31st, 2023.
There's a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Paul Thielen. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Right, on to item E, the open burning ordinance on page 10. Tarek, you get to give a report again.
All right, we are recommending that we just add a sentence to the ordinance that allows for us to use, because there's no open fire pits or burning in the parks at this time or public places, and we'd like to allow for the city, a city-sanctioned fire pit or event or function, because we will be adding in a fire pit to Gazebo Park this summer. So the change is one sentence at the end of, I don't have the line item there.
Yeah, so it's ordinance number 45. It's at the end of section 1445B6, just adding in no recreational fires on any publicly owned property, ... or other public place unless the fire is contained within a city-owned or provided fire pit. So the new language is unless the fire is contained.
Yep.
By the city. I'll make the motion to approve ordinance number 45, third series.
It's a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion on that?
I read moving a water line accessible to the fire site, and I think maybe that should be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron already mentioned that he plans on doing that.
Yeah, I have some concerns in just making a publicly accessible water line, but I'm sure there's a way to make it work.
Absolutely.
One thought, I know, Ron, when we were at the Trail Guard, somebody had mentioned being approached about concerns by neighborhood residents to putting a fire pit in there. I don't know, I haven't heard anything from any residents on that, but since somebody had said somebody approached them, I thought anybody on here hear anything? Okay.
I had somebody just tell me they didn't think it was a good idea, but they didn't express why. I do think that one thing I think is really helpful is that we will have the cameras there now as well.
Yeah.
which we had talked about doing previously when we got the fire pit before the vandalism incident, because we want to be sure to keep an eye on the situation. So I think that given it is such a public park, you know, it's very much in the middle of a lot of things, that there will be more eyes kept on it than it might be at one of the others.
Agreed.
So I think it'll be good. You know, I've heard a lot of support too. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But I think with the cameras and the water line, that we should be pretty good.
Great, well, I do have a motion and a second on amending the ordinance as stated on the action sheet. Hearing no further discussion, calling the question, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. Right, Ron, on the airport grant.
Okay, thank you. The operation and maintenance grant, we've had this grant ongoing since it was rebuilt in 2004. We get $20,961 a year. This is a 2-year grant, and we're eligible up to 75% of all of our costs. We have never had an issue with claiming the entire amount. It definitely helps the operation out there. Even with this, we still generally run in the red out there. So I would definitely support approving it.
Great. Any questions for Ron or any further discussion? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-15, authorization to execute MnDOT Airport Maintenance and Operation Grant Contact and State of Minnesota Airport Maintenance and Operation Grant Contract between the City of Painesville, State of Minnesota.
I have a motion by Hertzberg as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Right, page 40, the damage quotes to repair City Hall or the City Council chambers.
Yes, obviously, we can see we got the 2 quotes here, the low being from Ron Mayer Construction in the amount of the $12,284.78. That will include the entire ceiling here will need to come down, lights and everything. So obviously, this is going to take probably an entire week to do, put them back up, and then getting the entire ceiling repainted. So we're definitely looking at an entire week. As you can see, the insurance has covered everything, less the $1,000 deductible.
The only thought I had, Ron, is can we save money by not popcorning the ceiling again? Looks like that was $2,000 for a 1990s design choice.
I guess we can switch it.
I just thought if we could save the money, why redo it and why worry about matching? But if it's going to cost us the same no matter what, then I don't care.
Okay,
Neil?
The roof repair, that is done,
that's already done. That
and
was,
the insurance cover that also?
no,
They did not.
no. That was like $200, so.
Oh.
We're just lucky we found a hole. We're trying to find it, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And
So it should be good.
yes,
For a while.
it's something we definitely need to plan for as a roof replacement. I mean, it is beginning to age, but should be good for a number of years yet.
Anything else? Otherwise, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the quote from Ron Mayer Construction in the amount of $12,284.78 to fix the water damage in the council chambers with the amount to be paid for by insurance minus the $1,000 deductible.
Right, there's a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, Police and Fire Board on page 50. We have minutes that were sent out, and I think the minutes helped show the last meeting was not productive. I spoke to Dodie. Dodie was going to be here tonight as well, but she's not feeling well today. She stayed home for work, is my understanding, so she's just going to stay at home with the plague and not spread it to the rest of us. So I thanked her for that, but she was going to be here otherwise. But Dodie and I spent a lot of time talking. There are a couple of members of that board who I think are on it because of single issue items. which is something that we've had council members in the past who are on for single issue things. And the unfortunate thing is what happens is that discussion seems to always circle back to single issues, and the opportunity for productive discussion on other things is limited as a result. That board, some good things came out of it, but at the end, it just got so, I think, off track of where it was initially meant to go, that the only solution I can think of to get it back on track is to just kind of burn the thing to the ground and rebuild it. Dodie and I have spent a lot of time on the phone trying to come up with a better idea, and unfortunately, we can't come up with one. So my recommendation is that this dissolve, and at our next working session, we spend some time figuring out what else we can do that has the same goal, but is potentially structured better and with a clearer definition in order to accomplish it. So I like the idea, I don't want to give up on it entirely, but I think this needs to be reworked from where it's at. Chief, you were there, I don't know if you have any other better thoughts.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Okay. I do know, I think Dodie's remorseful that it's come to this. She wants to stay involved. So I think she's going to continue to help plan Night to Unite. She's had a very integral involvement in that thus far, so I don't think she's going to give up on that. But I do think that the Night to Unite being a community-wide event, the council really should be taking an active role in that as well, at least until some new board can get put into place. If there's any further questions about it, we can certainly talk about it. Otherwise, I think a motion would be in order on this point. If anybody's got a better idea, I am all ears.
No? Then I'll move to dissolve the Police and Fire Advisory Board and instruct staff to implement the amendment of affected city ordinances.
Okay, there's a motion by Brick. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini, as stated on the action sheet. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. Page 51, we have a number of airport T-hangar lease agreements. Ron, did you want to tell us anything about these? I did note they expire at the end of the year to get us on the January 1 renewals.
Right, that is the intent. These are all existing pilots, and like you said, they will expire at the end of the year so we can get everybody on the same rotation here. Currently, we do have 2 empty hangars, and so hopefully they will be filled shortly. Let's see, tomorrow night we do have an airport board meeting, and that is to discuss the fly-in, which I know the Friends of the Airport have been working on. So I think they're planning a pretty good show.
Any discussion on this or any questions for Ron? Otherwise, a motion would be in order to approve the ordinances as listed on our action sheet.
They'll make a motion to approve the airport T-hangar leases between the city of Painesville and John Erickson, Ryan Frank, Daniel Groth, Curtis Newberg, Wilbur Olson, and Jeff Pauley.
All right, there's a motion by Thielen as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Right, page 112. Give me a second to get there, Chief, before I turn things over to you. All right, hiring of a new officer. Chief Wagner.
Thank you. So, as mentioned earlier, a couple weeks ago, we conducted interviews with an applicant for the open police officer position, or one of the open positions. That applicant was pushed through the Policies and Procedures Committee to the next phase, which was the background, psychological, and the physical exam. As of Friday and earlier today, all of the requirements for that have been satisfied. The background has come back with no disqualifying criteria for the applicant. The psychological came back very strong. There's nothing in the physical to preclude from employment at this point. We are at the stage of the official hire. So I spoke with City Administrator Arafai on this, and With the individual's experience, we're recommending a starting wage at grade 9, step 4. He does have roughly 4 years of law enforcement experience coming into this, and his start date, if approved this evening, will be tomorrow.
Ooh, he's ready to go. That's awesome.
So he will be here for most of Town and Country Days.
Get his feet wet, real
See
good.
if he sticks around.
Well, unfortunately, he has a prior commitment on Saturday, so.
What has been our history of hiring at increased steps? Just, I've been trying to recall what we've done on other people.
The
And I
only,
know he's got, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, Paul, it seemed like I was done and I wasn't. The only reason I ask is I know this gentleman has quite a bit of law enforcement experience, but he's also been out for a while. So personally, I think step 3 might be more appropriate. I agree with an advanced step. I just don't know if just by looking at years of experience that we should match 4 for 4, given that there's been a period of not working, so that needs to be accounted for somehow as well.
yeah, so when I looked at this, and I don't disagree with you on that, Sean, I kind of went back and forth on, is 3 right, is 4 right? But then I also looked at some of his training history, and, some of the factors that we were looking at for in a candidate. And this is an individual who really hits a demographic of what we're looking for, but more importantly, from a department standpoint, he is a firearms instructor. He does his own permit to carry classes, which is a need that the department has. Once Officer LePack leaves, we will not have a firearms instructor. That is a fairly, costly program to send somebody to. So I looked at it and there was some value in some of the trainings and stuff like that that he brings to the table, which is why the higher step.
Okay.
And as far as putting anybody higher up, the only people we've ever set on higher on the scale were those that were coming in part-time, because everybody else we've hired has been brand new, pretty much out of school.
I was thinking there was one that we interviewed, I think we offered it to her, and then she went with a different department. And there was some discussion there about offering a higher step, but I couldn't remember where that landed.
I don't know if we ever landed, because the night that we called to tell her she was being hired, she said, by the way, I'm being backgrounded by 3 other agencies. So I don't think we ever actually got to that level.
I think we should leave it at step 4 because of the issues of having them hiring, that we might want to take this while we can.
I think other departments we have hired at a different step with experiences, just not recently with the police.
No, and I know we have.
Yeah.
My only thought was, usually we match years for years because that's how it would be done in-house. But given the break in employment, that should be accounted for somewhere as well. But you're right, he's a firearms instructor, and that's going to be a huge savings long-term as well. So,
He's an EMT and a firefighter, so.
yeah.
No. Is he moving to town, though?
To be honest with you, I think he probably is. The last conversation I had with him, they have looked at the value of their home, and by all indications will be putting it up for sale. So whether he moves to town or not, I don't know, but he's certainly moving away from where he is right now.
Depends on if there's somewhere for him to move, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, unless there's any further discussion, a motion on something would be in order.
I'll move to hire Colby Davis as a full-time police officer at grade 9, step 4 at $29.58 per hour, effective immediately.
Okay, there's a motion by Brick. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Right.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Mr. Davis, and then the only condition is he has to bring that baby in at some point so that we can meet them.
Yeah,
Right.
so he will be here this week, so hopefully I can track you guys down over Town and Country Days and introduce you.
Great.
I'll be working at the hamburgers.
Yeah, Gene will be sweating it out over the grill.
Hey, me too, I just haven't signed up yet.
All right, we have our revised bylaws and our rules of order, which we've reviewed at policies and procedures and the retreat, and we're looking at amending these now and getting them brought up to speed, and then hopefully carrying them out and keeping up on revisions going forward. This is something that we've discussed a few times now, so it doesn't surprise me that there's not anything additional to be added, but there's a motion, I would entertain it.
I'll make the motion to approve City of Painesville bylaws summary and rules of order.
All right, there's a motion by Hertzberg to approve the summary of the bylaws and the rules of order. Or the City of Painesville bylaws, that should probably be bylaws, comma, summary and rules of order, but we'll work with it. Any further, is there a second?
Second.
Start with that, thank you. Second by Thielen. So motion is stated on the action sheet, Hertzberg, Thielen. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None? Carries. All right, page 146, our revised personnel policies. This is something that's gone through policies and procedures a couple of times. We took a look at all of them, recommended some updates and some revisions. Some things were in there that just came about as the upgrade of time, like the inclusion of Juneteenth, I think is in here now.
Extended employee vacancy.
Yeah, one thing I just noticed is that on page 6, under 1.4, for the elected officials, there's a line in there that says, does not apply to, that these policies do not apply to elected officials except for travel and per diems. That's something that was going back and forth, but we approved our own per diem policy, so that line under 1.4 should probably be taken out now. But otherwise, there is a PTO bank policy that the Policies Procedures has been discussing for a while. We've worked with the labor attorney and the league on getting some information about that. Everything else is pretty much just an update in here. So at this point, I would request a motion on the personnel policy, changing the line on 1.4 to remove that new language.
So
Make
just
the
remove
motion
red
to
line.
approve the revised City of Painesville personnel policies.
Deleting the new language on
Deleting the
section
1
1.4.
point, whatever it was.
Okay. So there's a motion by Soini to approve the revised personnel policies with the removal of the new language on section 1.4 under scope. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brick. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none.
Yep, I do.
Oh, yes,
If I can find
okay, we'll wait for
a
you.
question, and I didn't mark my page.
That's okay, take your time, we'll wait for you.
Well, it was about vacation for the part-time employees, and that was crossed off. But what page was that on?
I remember reading it.
I saw it this afternoon, but it was all crossed out.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Overtime.
Help me, I can't
About like
find it.
holidays or vacation time?
Next, there's one thing, it's on 179 of our full agenda, 32 of the policy. There's a paragraph on,
There it is, under holidays.
okay.
So we're no longer doing that for part-time employees?
That is what this would say, yes. Do we currently pay holidays for our part-timers?
No.
Yes,
Yeah.
They police do, right?
they get prorated.
It was put, we're doing now what it says.
Yeah, so right, so yes, this would be removing the prorated holiday pay.
We do something, well, did.
I believe
something to
Belinda
that
pays
sort.
it out quarterly
Yes,
for the
So-
holidays. So like in our case, Melissa, I believe, gets paid.
Yeah, it's holidays, they don't get vacation, no.
no,
But- And in most jobs, part-timers don't get holidays, but I believe we put this in there to help attract people when we couldn't get applicants for part-time positions. So I don't know why we really want to take it out.
yeah, I agree. I know that I don't think makes that much of a difference financially. I don't think it's
Don't add up
to the city.
My guess is that it's a payroll nightmare. But does that mean it's not worth having? I don't know.
Well, it's a matter of figuring the hours and you get, I mean, it's not a big math equation,
Every,
not as complicated as a fire distribution.
every employee at the liquor store is a part-time employee.
Yeah, and
that would-
sometimes they're open holidays, so.
Yeah, and I think it was like a quarterly, like a bump on the check or something, so yeah, I would be,
I'm fine with the rest, but I kind of think we should leave this in.
I agree.
So,
Will
are you
amend.
making a motion to amend the motion to approve
Yes,
the policies, deleting the language in section 1.4, and then retaining the stricken language in section 16 on page 32?
correct.
Okay? So,
Kristen get all that?
yep, I'm gonna repeat it so that Kristen can have it. So Neil is making a motion to amend Jean's motion so that the motion would read to approve the personnel policies as presented, subject to the deletion of the new language in section 1.4 and the restoration of the stricken paragraph under section 16 on page 32 of the policy. Let's give Kristen a second to make sure she's got that written down, and then I'll give her a second.
Second.
Okay, so the motion to amend has been made by Hertzberg, seconded by Thielen. On the motion to amend the motion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Now, the motion is on approval of the personnel policies, subject to the deletion of the new language in section 1.4 and the restoration of the stricken language under section 16. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? That carries. Right. Tarek, I would say if it's a huge nightmare for Belinda to figure out, then we should talk about maybe doing something instead, but not eliminating that benefit entirely.
Well, looking at the language here too, I kind of wonder if it was stricken and it was just going to be the same as the full-time employees. Because if you don't make the distinction that it's, the stricken language is making, then it just says employees, it does not specify full-time. So I don't know if maybe that was the intent.
Don't know.
I don't know if that was it.
I mean, the way it's written is the fairest, because it's based on your work time. So if you're working 32 hours, you get about,
Hold on, we're a bunch of morons.
oh,
It's repeated under section 16.4. It's duplicate language.
so it is still,
It's still in play.
well then,
I'm
let's,
just tired.
Let's just redo it and then.
read it
vote on
all.
next meeting.
Just,
Yeah.
let's vote to delete the amendment.
so we'll just move forward without that language in there. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Nightmare for Kristen.
Sorry, Kristen.
She'll come and ask us anyway.
I know. Well, Jen's gonna laugh her tail off tomorrow morning when she gets in. She's gonna have some words. Okay. Page 216. Jumping forward, the memorandum of understanding between the city and Law Enforcement Labor Services on the revised police benefits. something that we've discussed at prior meetings. This is the memorandum of understanding to make it official. Any discussion? Tarek, Chief, anything we need to discuss further on this, or is there a motion ready?
Oh, it's pretty self-explanatory there.
I think it's pretty much what we discussed at the last meeting.
Think so. I'll make the motion to approve the MOU between the City of Painesville and LELS.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Soini, seconded by Brick. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, old business, the library board. We've got a number of people expressed interest. I asked Jen to put this on under old business. I just wanted to discuss, there was one person, Leo Lewis, expressed an interest in serving, but as I understood his expression of interest, it was only if we couldn't find somebody else to serve on the board. If we couldn't fill it, he wanted to be there. So we did find somebody. Mary Janata was willing to step up and serve. So we do have an equal number of 4 people from the city, 4 people from the township.
And you added me back in.
Well,
I was happy with being off, but that's okay.
I'll tell you, the reason why is by city ordinance, you're a member of all of our committees. If we got you off police and fire,
We got everybody off.
I don't see your name on here.
he's an advisor.
Oh, fancy.
The other thing that I just want to note is voting member Olivia Reed, and Bill, I just kind of want to make sure that this is okay, but I want to do it anyway. Olivia is a high school student. I reached out to her. I thought it would be really nice to have a youth member on the board, but I just want to make sure that we can actually, I don't see a reason why she couldn't vote. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, because I want to do it anyway.
She's a good choice. I think she'll do really well.
Yeah.
One of the princesses now.
Is she now?
Yeah.
I wasn't able to
Ran
attend,
for Miss
so.
Painesville.
Right, so I would ask for a motion to appoint the members of the ad hoc library board, and let's just leave it as presented on the action sheet rather than listing off 3,000 people.
I'll make that motion.
So motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. Tarek, if you don't want to come, I mean,
You're busy. It'll meet the same time we meet somewhere.
all right, so there's a motion by Soini, seconded by Thielen, as stated on the action sheet. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Carries. Right, we have our financial reports available online. The police department report is in here. And unfortunately, the Community Foundation decided they did not want to award us the grant we applied for the police stuff. But, so that was disappointing. I'll share my frustrations with Randy next time I see him.
Moment, churches.
So, all right, with that, we do stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Look at that, under an hour, and I haven't got on my soapbox.
Well, that was the first half